Hey everyone, exciting show for you today. We bring back our expert series on Mondays. And as you know, we start off strong with Greg Dickerson. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing very well. So we're going to continue our theme of doing three topics. The first one is going to be forbearance and really the discussion of, yes, there are 3.1 million people in forbearance, at least by the last count. But there seems to be a lot of talking heads and YouTube entertainers that want to scare people into believing that 3.1 million people in forbearance automatically equal 3.1 million people going to foreclosure. And I certainly don't think that's how it's going to play out, but I'd love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, not, I don't think all of them, but, a percentage of them will. The question is, what percentage is that? Some of them are strategic forbearance, engagements where people are like, hey, we can miss payments for a while. It's not going to hurt our credit. It's going to build up the money in the bank. And when we get to the back end of the forbearance period, we might be able to extend extend the forbearance program if that's what the government does, or rework the loan. And with low interest rates and everything, it's like a mortgage payment vacation. You're just adding it to the back of the loan. If you got a 30-year mortgage, it makes a lot of sense. Right now, if you can skip the mortgage payment for 6 months. So there's a lot of people strategically doing that. There are some areas where there is serious distress, and obviously there are some of these people that are in some distress that may end up in a situation where they have to sell their homes. And that's the thing, the market's red hot, interest rates are low. So the likelihood of somebody, or that many people ending up in foreclosure and not being able to sell their houses is pretty slim to none. And there will be a few, small percentage of that 3 million, that are underwater on their mortgages and, maybe can't sell their homes for whatever reason. But in this day and age, with all the investors out there, with, the retail buyers out there, almost anybody can sell their house right now.
Yeah, when I look at the forbearance requests, first and foremost, the fact that there are forbearance show you that banks are doing things entirely different than last time, right? Last time the answer was, I'm not talking to you for 90 days.
Right.
And then I'll work with you. Something I did research over the weekend, and in 2008, if you got 2 months down, you were 80% likelihood going to be foreclosed or short sold.
Yeah.
That's the numbers historically speaking at 08. That's why they're doing forbearance today. Banks learned their lesson. I mean, it's just that simple, right? So when you look at, go ahead. You have something to say? Sorry.
Yeah, we froze up for a second. Yeah, in 2008, 9, there was so much inventory, you couldn't sell your house. So this is a very different time. If you're in trouble, you can sell your house before it gets into a foreclosure situation. The only reason that it would reach that point is that you just don't want to sell, or you can't for whatever reason. And there's going to be pockets where, you're not going to be able to give a house away, but very few.
Yeah. I think really the key is banks are working with you. I think there are strategic forbearances, i.e., wow, I can save 6 months of mortgage payments. I'm in.
Yeah.
Some of those were cure. What that means is they'll pay up at the end. Most will get seconds at 0% interest that they've already talked about. Some people will get to the end of forbearance and realize that they need to sell, but they have equity, right? It's a very different game to sell when you have equity versus you're underwater. Right.
And even if they don't have equity, they should, in this environment, houses have appreciated 7 to 20%, depending on the market, at least to break even, pay the loan off. So you don't even need equity as long as you can sell for enough to pay the loan off. And most people are in that position. There were some reports out that there's a certain number of properties in certain markets that are underwater right now, but that's going to be some isolated little pockets. And then the question is, if they're underwater, are they in the forbearance program?
Right.
And if they're in the forbearance program, are they really distressed, or are they just taking advantage of an opportunity? So a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah. And then the other thing that really gets my goat, these people, and again, many of them were in high school in the last crisis and they didn't experience it like you and I. But here's the deal. Let's just assume 3 million people were going to go to foreclosure out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Here's the reality. When you get a market that is flooded with foreclosures, the normal foreclosure process, at least in California, is 7 months, right? You need to be 90 days late. Then it goes through 3 months of this and then 2 months of that. And it's 7 months in the best of times. I did research last week. California, the average foreclosure timeline in 08 was 700 days. average foreclosure in Nevada was 1,100 and in New York was 1,400. I picked those
Yeah.
states because they are probably going to have the most acute pain, but that's why these people talking about foreclosures in 2021 don't get it. Even if thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of homes entered foreclosures, they would not exit until best case 2022, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll take a while. The other difference this time around is you have a lot more institutional investors. Well, you have institutional investors. We didn't have that back then, that are buying homes for rent long term. So that became a thing after 2008-9, where a lot of these investment funds, like a BlackRock and Blackstone, were coming in and buying toxic assets, which were, you know, REO properties that the bank had taken back. They turned into non-performing notes. So these funds came in and bought the notes, ended up foreclosing on the properties, and then now they rent them out. So now you have these hedge funds and investment funds. I did a video the other day about them as your big buyers list. You know, a lot of people are selling, wholesaling their properties to and retail, you know,
Mhm.
selling retail and selling wholesale their properties to investment funds, hedge funds, institutional buyers like Invitation Homes, Open Door, OfferPad,
Yeah.
you know, ZBuyer, Zillow, you know, ZBuyers. These companies are coming in and buying houses from investors now, as well as retail. So we didn't have that the other go round either. So, you know, that's going to absorb a lot of that distress too.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because again, that's the beauty of having gone through last time. I was buying, or I was at least writing offers every week for most of 2010. And then out of nowhere, there was no inventory, just out of
Mhm.
nowhere. And it's because the hedge funds finally had enough and they said, okay, we're going to buy everything. One sec, let me hang up on this person. Just a wholesaler trying to buy one
Michael
of my
Zuber
houses.
International, how can I help you?
Yeah, just a wholesaler trying to buy one of my houses. But what I was saying is the hedge funds came out of nowhere and changed overnight. And I'm so glad you brought that up because again, even if I don't believe there's going to be waves, I believe there will be drips and drabs of houses that come out of foreclosure because there'll be each foreclosure is treated individually, right? And they're
Yeah.
not all on the same timeline. It's not like last time where banks were foreclosing in mass because they made mistakes. You got to be 90 days late, you got to do this, and these people couldn't catch up. And the debt, that's the big difference also, is the debt structure is so different this time, right? It was variable and short term last time. Now it's 30-year fixed. But you're so right. Hedge funds are licking their chops. They will just buy entire spreadsheets of houses sight unseen.
Yeah. And you know, the banks aren't stupid. So they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. They're not going to devalue their own assets and their own notes. So what they did last time was they created what's called shadow inventory. So that was REO properties that the bank held on their books and did not release to the market over, you know, immediately. They did that over a period of time. So that's your shadow inventory, that, you know, the Fed made exceptions and allowed the banks to carry those toxic assets on their books. Now, the issue became the whole mark to market question. So there was a lot of things that took place behind the scenes that allowed the banks to work through a lot of that inventory, and they've worked through it all now. So, you know, there was more than 3 million houses in their shadow inventory post 2009. So the banks, the investors, all that could totally absorb all that before any kind of an issue happens. And they're not going to let that happen. Now, the big problem is commercial real estate,
Amen.
hotels, office,
Yes.
retail. That's a big problem that is going to be very interesting, you know, to see how that shakes out, and what happens there, and whether or not they're required to market. And, you know, because there is no institutional buyer waiting to absorb those assets, right?
Yeah,
it's
there
not
were
the same thing.
there were two mall REITs that went bankrupt today, or actually, I guess Sunday they filed, right?
Hmm.
Pennsylvania and CGH, I think. I reported on them this morning.
CBL.
Yeah, CBL. Thank you. Bad memory. But yeah, so
Hmm.
that's interesting. So again, I just wanted this first video to be about the forbearance. It is not going to be the catastrophic supply inducing event that all these rookie investors are talking about. It will have like single family homes in New York City or San Francisco. That will be added inventory into a market where there was already excess supply and less demand. So that will impact. But like you said, that'll be 3, 4, 10 cities across the US, but the nation, I mean, investors and worst case, Wall Street will pick them up, and we won't miss a beat in 2021 because of forbearance, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even in those other areas you mentioned, people will buy those before they end up, going back to the bank.
Yeah, very cool. Well, this has been a lot of fun. We've kind of demystified forbearance. It's not going to be the thing that these talking heads are talking about. I look forward to the next one. Thank you.